Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of Cheapskate Aviation. I'm Nate, and I wanted to just take a moment to kind of introduce the channel and share a little bit of my story. I don't really remember when I fell in love with aviation or when I decided to be a pilot. I think I was just born wanting to be a pilot. Of course, I don't remember being born because I was rather young at the time, but I assume that the doctor checked my vitals and did whatever tests they do, and kind of came to my parents and said, "Your son has the bug. He's an aviation nut." And there's no cure for it. I've had this disease all my life. Some people can live their entire lives with airplanes flying over their heads all the time, and it just doesn't even bother them. But we who have the bug, we have to look at every single one, and we strain our necks, and we have to know what is the type, where's it going. And then, most importantly, we have to make sure that everyone around us knows what type it is. I've sometimes lost sleep just wondering, what is some airplane that I was not able to identify. So I went on my whole life being interested in airplanes and thinking that, maybe I'd like to be a pilot someday. But I don't think it was until I was about 12 that I found out that you can be a pilot even if it's not your career. That's when I found out there was such a thing as a private pilot, and I found an old private pilot handbook and read the whole thing. Started flying Microsoft Flight Simulator 4.0. Once I knew that you could be a pilot even if you weren't a professional, that's when I made the goal. I will be a pilot. I remember one moment when I was a kid, I was just moping around because I wasn't a pilot, and my mom asked me if I wanted to get ice cream or something like that, and I said no because that's not what I wanted to do. And then it occurred to me, I don't want to get ice cream because I want to be a pilot and instead, which wasn't an option anyway right then. And I told my mom, well, I guess, getting an ice cream without a pilot's license is better than not getting an ice cream without a pilot's license. So, okay, sure, let's go get some ice cream. And I think that it was at that moment when I realized I have a real problem. So from then on, I tried to kind of push it more to the back burner, just kind of be content knowing, okay, someday I'll be a pilot, and it's okay if that's not right now. And I went on for a long time, and kind of my disease was in remission. And everyone knew I liked airplanes, but I was able to sometimes even have a whole conversation without bringing up airplanes. And not everyone knew I was an airplane nut within the first few minutes of meeting me, and I was able to hide it pretty well. My poor sweet wife knew that I liked airplanes. She had no idea what she was getting herself into. It was after I graduated from college. It's not like I was rich, but I finally, I was making money and not paying tuition. And that's when I started really thinking about, okay, what will it take to actually become a pilot? And I started, researching and learning, okay, what is this going to cost? And started working on figuring out how I could get there. And that's when I started really becoming obsessed. And I listened to a lot of podcasts. A podcast that I really liked and still like listening to is The Finer Points by Jason Miller. He's a wonderful CFI. But he would also make these comments about how aviation's not as expensive as you might think. And he would say, oh yeah, a typical person can get their pilot's license for around $18,000. And that's not really that big of a deal because that's probably what you spend on your family's annual ski trip to the Swiss Alps. Jason, you and I live very different lives. So that's when I started making kind of affordability an area of my research, and I started trying to figure out, okay, what are the little tips and tricks and strategies you can use to save money on your private pilot license training. So one day my wife came to me and she said, hey, you know what, maybe instead of just moping around all the time, how about you just set up a separate savings account, put a little bit in every week, and let's just start working towards this. So I did, and initially it was $2 a week, and I'd put $2 a week in this account, and then it became an investment account, and at least I felt like I was working towards something. So that began this long journey that we'll cover in a different episode, of saving and getting ready and finding something to fly in, that brings us to today, where I'm finally right on the cusp of actually starting my flight training. So I've thought, it's a good thing to record your flight training lessons, so that you can learn from them. So I always kind of planned on recording them, and then I thought, why not share them all with the world? There aren't really a whole lot of videos on YouTube or YouTube channels that I've found that follow someone's flight training from the beginning to end. But the ones that are out there, I've enjoyed watching. And so I thought it'd be cool to share that with the world. But I had an experience a couple months ago that really made me want to share this with the world, and really made me want to make the focus of my YouTube channel affordable aviation. So I wrote Jason from the Finer Points podcast because I was concerned. I knew that I could afford my primary train eventually. No matter how much it cost, you just save longer. But what about after that? After getting my license, there's a monthly cost to continue flying, and it's important to fly frequently to keep your currency, and that's not something you can really save up for. So I asked him, how much currency is enough? In response to my question and other listeners who had similar questions, he aired a podcast in which he talked about some little tips and tricks you can do to be able to afford flying enough to stay current. And he had some really great advice, but he had this great news that he was sharing, that he felt you could be current and safe for only $500 a month. $500 a month is a lot for a hobby. I can afford that, but it's a hobby, and it's not just my money. I mean, this is the money for me and my wife and my kids, and I can't just blow it all on what I want to do. So the reason that experience sticks out to me so strongly is because, at this point I had this goal of being a pilot for like 15 to 20 years, and this was the first time in all of that time that I thought to myself, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe it's just not in the cards for me, and maybe I need to go find another hobby and pick up fly fishing or something. Unfortunately for me, and unfortunately for my bank account, I only stayed discouraged for like a day and then decided, whatever, I'm going to figure out how to do it. But I didn't like the way that I felt that day, and I'm confident that there are other people that feel that same way, that they've been afflicted with the bug as well, and they just think that they can't do it. So that's why I want to share this channel with the world. I'm not going to be setting any world records or anything. I'm not going to be getting my pilot's license for $3,000, but I am going to do it for less than $18,000, and afterwards I'm going to be flying for less than $500 a month, and doing it in a way that is safe, where I feel like I have sufficient currency to take my family with me. And I hope that this will inspire someone out there who's feeling discouraged like I was, to know that they can do it. So thanks for watching. I'm Cheapskate Nate. Nate the Cheapskate. Cheap Nate. Nate the Great Cheapskate Aviator. Thanks for aviating with Nathan and Cheapskating. Okay, even I know that one's bad. Okay, we'll skip the sign-off, so if anyone has a great sign-off idea, leave it in the comments. If you want to see where this goes, go ahead and like and subscribe, and I promise that soon you'll see some actual flying instead of just my face talking at you. And until next time, happy flying.